Hi, it's Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI, the Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute, and I want to very cordially welcome you to this week's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show, where each week I tackle a handful of the biggest sales and marketing challenges that we're hearing about from all over the data center ecosystem, from data center operators like hyperscalers, colocation, edge, modular, wholesale data center providers, as well as technology and facilities related companies that sell to and partner with data center operators and data center end users, plus all of the construction and real estate companies and investors in and around digital infrastructure, data center and critical facilities, as well as outsourced sales and marketing companies that work with data centers, digital infrastructure, and critical facilities. And this can help the entire go-to-market team, regardless of whether you work in sales, marketing, customer success, or account management, product channel partnerships, or perhaps you're the maestro, the orchestra conductor, the leader of the captain who is responsible for making sure that everyone is sitting in the right seats, rowing the boat in the right direction, playing at the same tempo at the right speed, coming in exactly when is needed, and is orchestrating all of this tremendous growth in this great period that we are now experiencing with data centers, digital infrastructure, and critical facilities. Probably don't have to tell you, most of you, that folks like Jensen Huang and Michael Dell and BlackRock, everyone is radically excited about what's going on in the data center. Even just as recently as a week ago, there was another big infusion of capital coming into the data center led by SoftBank and Oracle and OpenAI. A lot of exciting things going on. So each week I host this Q&A show, this live stream, where I tackle some of these really, really big nagging sales and marketing struggles that many teams are going through. And if you want to make sure that you get notified about upcoming educational events and resources just like this, make sure that you're subscribed to our Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter. You can sign up right on our website at www.dcsmi.com. So what's on the agenda? What's on the list of questions that I'm going to be tackling today? First, we're going to start by looking at how a mission-critical digital infrastructure provider can improve its new customer, its new client acquisition. After that, we'll turn our attention to how a data center colocation and cloud services business can generate qualified leads. Then we'll shift over to how a major cloud computing, storage, and analytics provider improves sales and marketing. Right after that, we'll take a real quick break for a message from our sponsor. And in the second half of this week's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show, we'll look at how to align with client hyperscale budgets, how to market and sell data center cable management systems. And as we head down the home stretch on this week's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show, we'll look at how a modular data center provider can inform clients of the advantages of their modular solutions. If you have an idea for a topic, a question, a challenge that we should be addressing in one of these upcoming live shows, make sure to leave that in the comments wherever you are watching. So without any further delay, let's jump into this week's first question, which is, how does a mission-critical digital infrastructure provider improve new customer acquisition? How does a company that's principally in the business of being a mission-critical digital infrastructure provider improve its new client acquisition? That's a fantastic question. So the first place I want you to look is, let's figure out what a great new client looks like for you. What is your ideal client? If you have an ideal client profile documented, so you can answer exactly where they should be located, roughly what company size they should be, and if there's certain industries or niches that are better than others, you're in fantastic shape. If not, what I want you to do first is look at your website, look at your logos, look at your case studies, and figure out where you've done best. If you don't have clues over there, then you'll need to go into your CRM, your customer relationship management system, and look at who your happiest, most successful clients are with your company's mission-critical digital infrastructure. And we need to figure out what they have in common. Where do they tend to be located? The good part with digital infrastructure provider is many, many times you're able to sell to a client that is literally not only just all over the country, all over the continent, but potentially anywhere on the planet. So sometimes with that in mind, the only thing that may be holding you back is compliance, accreditation, certifications that are unique to a particular region and a particular business model, and or being able to market, sell, and service to those kinds of clients in their language. But to the extent that you think that your addressable market tends to be at least bilingual or multilingual, and English is one of those languages, you may have a global market. However, again, you want to bear in mind that there's certain geographic regions and certain kinds of niches and industries where you'll need certain kind of credentialing to be able to do business in those particular markets. So geographically, where are they located? How big or small are they? How big do they need to be to afford your minimum package, your minimum program, your minimum level of engagement? And at what size do they get so large that it can be overwhelming for your company to be able to really realistically support what they truly need? Or maybe the sales process is too long, or there's too much red tape, it's just too complicated, and they may be better served by a different kind of company that perhaps is larger, has capabilities in that particular niche, has representation in that particular local region. Again, only you can answer that. But like, what's so small that they can't afford you, and what's so large that they may overwhelm your company's current capabilities today? And then the third area, again, that I've alluded to is, are there certain industries or niches where you're especially well suited to compete and win in the space and retain clients in the space? And are there certain niches where you're like the opposite of that? So again, this is a conversation that you'd have with your CTO, your chief product person, your CEO, is trying to figure out where you're really poised to win. Once you have that in mind, you'll have your ideal client profile. And the second thing you should be able to do once you have that ideal client profile documented, the geography, the size, and the industries, is build out a target account list. I want you to list out, and it could be as simple in an Excel or a Google spreadsheet, anywhere from a couple dozen to a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand potential companies that should be doing business with your company today, but just aren't. Many of them probably are completely unaware of your company. A lot of them may be aware of, but haven't been motivated to take the next step and sign on and get started working with you. But anywhere from a couple dozen to perhaps as many as a couple thousand potential target accounts. Usually for most companies, it's somewhere in the middle. It's usually a few hundred. Then once you have down in a spreadsheet or in your CRM or however you're going to track this, your list of target accounts, and you've defined your ideal client profile, then we need to get down to the individual stakeholders and these companies that are most likely to be on the decision committee for buying mission critical digital infrastructure. And it depends on the nature of your business model. It depends on their company size, but more than likely, they're going to be folks like CTOs, VPs of engineering, VPs of infrastructure, digital infrastructure. Again, it depends on how big or small their company is. It depends on the nature of your business model, depends on the nature of their business model. But being able to figure out who are the 2 or 3 most important people that show up on those decision committees that are make or break for whether your company moves forward with a deal versus gets stalled out on a deal, those are your buyer personas. And I want you to prioritize which one has the biggest economic impact. That's going to be your primary buyer persona. The second most important impact, that'll be your secondary buyer persona. And maybe there's a tertiary buyer persona. There may even be a negative buyer persona, the kind of person that if they show up is like the kiss of death and the deal is nearly guaranteed to stall out. So once you have that in mind, that's not only incredibly valuable for how you do your targeting with your ads, how you do your targeting with your outbound, what shows up on your website navigation, on your architecture, your layout, your UX, user experience on your homepage, what shows up on the drop-down lists, on your forms as you're collecting leads and offering different kinds of value in exchange for a little bit of their information. Once you have decided and prioritized who's the most important, who's the second most important, then we need to do our homework. Then we need to figure out for the 2 or 3 most important categories of stakeholders, what do they care most about at the intersection of what you do when it comes to mission critical digital infrastructure. So we need to know each of those stakeholders' biggest goals, What do they need to achieve individually? What is their team working on? What is their company working on when it comes to mission critical digital infrastructure? And what is driving them nuts? What's stressing them out to no end? What are their biggest struggles? What are their biggest challenges? And we need to get the consensus on those in each of those segments in their own words. We can't just guess. We can't just talk to Bob or Sally because they've been at our company for decades or several years and they think they have all the answers. Bob and Sally's input is good, and maybe you should weigh it about 20 or 25% of the overall research. But most of your research needs to come from actually talking with people in these segments, ideally face-to-face. Second best would be video interviews. Third best would be things like studying their search and social footprint, running surveys, looking at what shows up in the CRM in their contact records. But make no mistake, you need their biggest goals and their biggest challenges and the consensus on that in each segment in their own words. In their own words is the difference between your messaging resonating and falling completely flat. And this isn't the time to get lazy. This isn't the time to get arrogant. This is the time to become client-centric, really, really understanding what they care most about, what they're struggling with when it comes to mission critical infrastructure. Because once you understand that, then you can set about creating your own content strategy for your own amazingly helpful educational thought leadership resources, for your own amazingly helpful thought leadership educational events, for doing your website copywriting. By the way, if your website copywriting was done without taking this into consideration, who voice is in there? Who are you writing this for? Are you writing your website for the benefit of resonating with your board members or your CEO? Are they really the people that are most important for this content to resonate with? Or is it your primary buyer persona, your secondary buyer persona? So website copywriting, sales enablement, product marketing, email marketing, social media posts, digital ads, everything needs to take into account the prioritized goals and the prioritized challenges of your most important buyer personas. If you skip this, everything starts to unravel and not really resonate. And it's really, really tough for you to stand out and compete in a globalized, hyper-competitive marketplace. So once you have that in mind, that alone is a major, major unlock for improving your new customer acquisition, new client acquisition for a mission critical digital infrastructure. But it's not enough to just get the strategy right. We have to execute early and often, be able to implement this and continue to show up in a way where we can add value to how we can teach them their professional development of how they're addressing their biggest goals and challenges when it comes to anything and everything having to do with mission critical digital infrastructure. And what's super important to keep in mind is the self-driven buyer's journey. What's the self-driven buyer's journey? This means that your buyers, especially very technical, hyper cynical, hyper skeptical technology buyers, don't want to spend much time with your sales team anymore. It wasn't always this difficult. 10 years ago, CEB, the corporate executive board that's now owned by Gartner, did research and found that about half of a typical buyer's journey happened before your sales team got to spend time with prospects and clients. At the time, it was 56% of their journey was over before vendor contact. That wasn't too bad, right? You were still in there for the last 44% of the time. Today, 10 years of digital transformation, millions of baby boomers being replaced, more millennials and Gen Z in decision-making roles, millions of people working from home. And we now live in a world where prospects and clients wants to spend any time with a member of your sales team. The game is 83% of the way over. Imagine that you're taking a bunch of employees, clients, and channel partners to a sports event, basketball, football, soccer, baseball, whatever it is, and you have this amazing box. However, the stadium, just like most buyers today, is not a big fan of salesy kind of stuff. They don't like overly self-promotional approaches, and they have this policy that everyone else can come into the stadium an hour and a half before the game, at the start of the game, and have this amazing experience. But we're afraid the sales guys, we're afraid they're going to ruin the vibe. So we have this policy. They're just not allowed into the stadium till the fourth quarter. They're not allowed in the stadium till the bottom half of the seventh inning. You're like, what the heck? We're the one, we paid tens of thousands of whatever for this current of our budget to have this amazing lavish experience. And you're telling us we can't come in? Yeah, that's basically what's going on. Imagine a world where you're excluded from the first 83% of the party. And even if you do everything perfectly, you only get in for the last 17%. That's the world we now have to live in. And the companies that are doing well with navigating this have figured this out and realized that they can no longer show up like transaction-focused salespeople. They can no longer use the same go-to-market marketing and sales playbook that they've used the last 10 or 20 years. They're actively reinventing themselves to show up more like teachers, consultants, subject matter experts, and trusted advisors. Trust is everything. And in some cases, they're really, really senior members of their team are showing up as thought leaders. But it's all about education and trust building. All of these touch points, all of those 28 touch points between complete stranger and purchase decision. And yeah, there's dozens of touch points. There's 28 touch points on an average journey between complete stranger and purchase decision. The way to earn your way in is not by pitching and selling more aggressively or selling better or anything like that. It's being a great guide of helping your ideal clients navigate their buyer's journey. And in order to do that, your sales team, your account executives, your sales development reps, your marketers, your account managers, product, channel, they all need to show up as teachers, consultants, subject matter experts, and trusted advisors. And the way you do that is by really dialing into what are the biggest goals and what are the biggest challenges for each one of your buyer personas. Create your content calendar, create your website copywriting, and create these amazingly helpful, insightful, educational events where they're motivated to want to spend significant amounts of time with your client-facing team members. And when you do this exceptionally well, they keep coming back to your events. Let's say you have a monthly lunch and learn or breakfast seminar series in your office or in your classroom, or if there's not geographic proximity, then it's on a Zoom or it's on StreamYard or on 24 or GoToWebinar or Goldcast or whatever you're using for these amazingly impactful virtual events for your most important and second most important buyer personas. By the way, segmented because more than likely they care about different issues. And when they keep coming back over and over and over again, one, they're learning to respect your expertise, and that has a game-changing impact on how they navigate their journey. Second, you're in a fantastic position to frame the criteria that they use to evaluate and weigh the pros and cons of all of the different options that are in front of them. Three, they start to trust you. And because of that, when you send them a message that says, hey, John, great to see that you registered for our upcoming webinar. But you know, when it comes to cybersecurity for manufacturing companies and mission critical digital infrastructure, it really takes a village. It's typically a team effort. It involves CISOs and network operations center managers and system engineers and CTOs. So with that in mind, who else from your team might also benefit from attending? Simply hit the forward message, add a thought or two on why this matters. And we'd love to help your company, your team get aligned and on the same page with this. You'd be shocked. That simple email marketing automation that you've been able to do for at least 10 years, more like 20 years, how amazingly impactful that is in getting multiple stakeholders from the same company attending your educational events. And you want to talk about a game-changing impact for getting the decision committee to start to know, like, and trust you, like world-class account-based marketing. It's amazingly impactful. This nearly guarantees that you stay on the short list. It starts to basically knock your competitors off the short list because they're spending so much time learning from you that there's very little time and interest in needing to learn from others. And by the time they're finally ready for that decision stage conversation and they're ready to buy, they have been using your methodology for evaluating this major initiative so intensely that your account executive shows up to that first meeting and they are quoting your experts as the be-all, end-all resource on anything and everything when it comes to mission critical digital infrastructure. So if you are serious about competing and winning the best clients and retaining the best clients in the self-driven buyer's journey for mission critical digital infrastructure and improving this new customer acquisition growth engine, this is the playbook that I recommend not only investing in, but changing your company culture over. For a lot of companies that have been using this dated marketing and sales playbook that they really haven't touched much in the last 10 or 20 years, this can sometimes be a painful change. That's why your executive sponsor really needs to be bought into the idea that, we have some of the smartest people on the planet in our particular geographic region, in the verticals that we work in, the company sizes that we work in, when it comes to anything and everything having to do with mission critical infrastructure. But you know what? I keep hearing from our sales leaders and our account management leaders that our team members are getting treated like crap. People are ghosting them. There's condescension. They're giving you the runaround. They're BSing you on what their true priorities are. And this cannot stand. This is nonsense. We're too good for this. We're better than that. And we're going to let the world know. We're going to let the world know that we are the be-all, end-all experts when it comes to anything and everything having to do with mission-critical digital infrastructure for our kinds of clients. We're not going to make it a secret. We're going to let the world know about that. And we're going to do this by having amazingly impactful educational resources and educational events. And we're going to change the company culture so that people look at our account executives and our sales development reps and our account managers as world-class experts and not just transaction-focused. That's the path forward for how a mission-critical digital infrastructure provider can improve its new customer, new client acquisition. Next question up. What do we got? Let's take a quick look and see if we got any comments here. Cool. This particular person wants to know how Project Stargate changes the game. Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And by very definition, by introducing that, I'm big time into evergreen content, which means that you're watching this today. There's people that will be watching in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, and there will still be a lot of people getting a lot of value from this a couple of years out from now. If you talk to anyone that has been investing aggressively in content marketing and thought leadership and this kind of program for years, there's a long shelf life on this. But Stargate would be the opposite of that because it's very much current events. So Stargate was just announced last week. It is a joint initiative for SoftBank and OpenAI and Oracle to invest up to $500 billion. I believe it's over the next 4 years. And they're originally starting out by capitalizing this with $100 billion in investing in digital infrastructure, investing in infrastructure to power massive increases in digital infrastructure capacity in the United States. So how does this change the game? Well, there's more capital flowing in. And by no means is Stargate the only place that a lot more capital is flowing in. What has changed the game tremendously just in the last couple of years is if you've been working in the data center ecosystem, digital infrastructure, and critical facilities for several years, 5, 10 plus years or more, you know that likely the only time when data centers were talked about in mainstream business media and mainstream financial media, in other words, when the word data center was uttered on like CNBC or Bloomberg or on the Wall Street Journal 10 or more years ago, was when one of the big REITs, one of the big real estate investment trusts that's publicly traded, reported on their quarterly earnings. So maybe a couple dozen times a year, data centers would be talked about. Fast forward ahead to where we are today, nonstop coverage. And a lot of this is the emergence of generative AI. And when OpenAI burst onto the scene and went into its public beta, I believe it was the end of late 2022, right? Fourth quarter of 2022. And ever since then, between AI and high performance computing and supercomputing and edge, a lot more conversations about edge and low latency and governance and smart cities, and IoT has just been growing explosively. Yeah, there's a lot more capital going in, and there's a lot more demand for data center construction than can possibly even be done in there's a supply demand imbalance right now. And in most cases, the limiting factor on a global basis is utility power. As a result, in Europe, there's already a lot of regulation around countries pushing back and saying, nope, you're like pushing 10, 11, 12% of our grid capacity going to data centers. We're not going to approve you building anymore until you figure out better solutions. In the US, there's similar kinds of conversations going on as well, but it's a different regulatory environment. So in general, my high level take, again, I'm not a financial analyst, briefly supported equity research analyst early on in my career with a big brokerage firm, but definitely I don't specialize in the investment part of digital infrastructure. But my general take is that because there's so much capital flowing in, we're going to continue to see a lot more growth across the entire ecosystem, starting with the hyperscalers and trickling on down. throughout all the other data center operators, all the other technology and facilities companies in and around data center, digital infrastructure, critical facilities, as well as construction, real estate, investment even. There's a huge continuing need for outsourced sales and marketing, especially leaning into the digital journey. So yeah, it's for the most part all good stuff. What's happening too is some of the legacy co-location facilities that can't handle the high density workloads. There's a second life for a lot of those facilities as well. A lot of them can be great for edge. They can handle non-AI workloads. Some of them could be repurposed in other directions. But in general, it's largely a good thing that there's so much optimism on the part of the investment community that the vote of confidence is that they're continuing to fund these kinds of initiatives. So next question up on our formal agenda for today with the more evergreen content, less current events kind of content. By the way, thanks for asking that question. If you have an idea for a topic or comment or challenge that you'd like us to consider an upcoming episode, usually I don't put those immediately into the agenda live, but that one seems to be especially timely. So if you have an idea for a challenge, topic, or question that you think we should address in an upcoming show, by all means, feel free to leave that in the comments and we will add that to the queue to address in one of our upcoming shows if we think it's of broad enough interest for most of the ecosystem. So next question up is, how does a data center co-location and cloud services business generate qualified leads? How does a data center co-location and cloud services business generate qualified leads? So the first thing that I always ask people when they bring up two different lines of business, have they determined that their co-location and their cloud services buyers are the same, or do they think they're selling to two different segments of the market? If you think they're two different kinds of buyers, you really need two different go-to-market playbooks. You need potentially two different sales and marketing strategies. But in relatively small companies, they're usually able to sell both. In other words, they're selling co-location, they're selling some private cloud, they're selling some hybrid, they have some direct connections to the big hyperscalers, they have amazing stuff going on in their meet me room with interconnections and the carrier neutrality part of all of this. So we're going to go with the idea here that it's a single kind of ideal client, a single go-to-market playbook, a single sales and marketing strategy that we're looking to generate more qualified leads around. So what we need to know is historically, where have they won best? Where have the best clients, who have the best clients been? And who do they continue to be? And when we're talking about co-location, these are almost multi-year agreements. When we're talking about public cloud, they're the opposite of multi-year agreements. They provide agility to be able to turn on and turn off literally like, is it every minute, every 2 minutes, or, it's very, very fast. So you have two really different mindsets of playing the extreme long game and playing the incredibly short game. But with that in mind, what you're essentially trying to do is build enough brand loyalty and provide enough value that your clients want to get both co-location and cloud services from your business, from the same company, one-stop shopping with all of this. So where have you been most successful? Of your ideal clients, what do they have in common? Where do they tend to be located? How big or how small are they? And what industries, what verticals, what niches do they tend to be located within? The geographic one, just in and of itself, is a really interesting issue, because for co-location operators, there tends to be a local bias towards, still to this day, a lot of IT customers, a lot of IT buyers who make decisions on co-location want to make sure they can get to your facility within a 30 or 60-minute drive. Because when the stuff hits the fan and there's an emergency, they don't want to have to book a ticket or drive 8, 12, 20 hours or whatever in the car to get there. They want to be able to get there fast. So there's a hyper-local playbook when it comes to figuring out who to grow your client base with. And with that in mind, that hyper-local playbook strongly favors in-person events. Sure, you could go around and do speaking engagements at local technology events and local related business events. If you do it selectively and sparingly, sure, you could go sponsor some of these events and set up some booths. The playbook that I am most partial to for a co-location business that wants to attract great hyper-local clients that are 30 to 60 minutes away is really understand who they are, what they care about, and invest in hosting your own local niche events. And you really don't need large numbers for it to work exceptionally well. If you have a classroom or a conference room that can comfortably seat 15, 20, 30 people, you're ready to get, you have an amazing asset there to take that space and use it once a month, twice a month to bring in 10, 20, 30 people at a time and educate and build trust with them about the biggest professional development goals that they're dealing with right now when it comes to co-location and cloud services. The biggest things they're struggling with, what's driving them nuts right now about co-location and cloud services. So look within your own company, look within your channel partner ecosystem, and figure out who are the subject matter experts that could potentially be seen as teachers, consultants, subject matter experts, trusted advisors, maybe even thought leaders when it comes to the biggest goals and challenges of your ideal clients for co-location and cloud services. And the cool part with hosting your own events is as long as you have a good CRM already, as long as you have a good email list where you already have permission, a lot of the logistics complexities with travel fall completely out of the equation. It's so much simpler. A lot of the logistics complexities of hosting an event like that at a hotel where you're buying $8 coffees for everyone completely falls out of the equation. And it's so much there's the people that I know that do this are literally making real estate decisions going forward on facilities, on being in a place where they can have that kind of room, that kind of classroom, that kind of conference room, because it's such a great driver of allowing you to educate and build trust with your most important clients and prospects and channel partners over time in a way that is a enormously impactful revenue growth engine. When they spend time with you in that context over and over and over again, you're basically getting enormous surface area in those common 28 touch points across the full buyer's journey between awareness and consideration and decision. So you're in a tremendously impactful, powerful place to be able to shape the criteria that your prospects and clients use for how they evaluate all of the other co-location and cloud services options that are in front of them. And when you do this exceptionally well, you not only stay on the short list, you start to proactively knock your competitors off the short list because they're just learning so much from you. There's no reason for them to look elsewhere to learn from others. And when they finally get to the point that they're ready to buy, it's like a layup. They're quoting you already. You taught them the methodology for their size company in their region, for their particular stakeholder in this set of vertical markets or niches or industries. You've helped them understand what the issues are that are top of mind. And they've even brought other members of the decision committee with them to these events. So that's what I would use for hyperlocal, for the co-location prospects and clients that are 30 to 60 minute drive of where you're located. The flip side is for a lot of co-location and cloud services providers, you can also do business with companies on the other side of the country, on the other side of the continent, on the other side of the planet. So what that means is as you segment your buyer personas and figure out what they care most about, as you're building this amazingly helpful educational content, build a virtual version of this as well. So the same kind of content that you put up on your Google Slides or Canva or whatever, or Keynote, on the TV in the classroom, in the conference room, you can also run as a live stream or run as a webinar, except instead of inviting people that are in your local area that can drive there pretty easily, you can invite everyone on the planet. And of course, with all of this, even local, record, repurpose, make it available on demand for all the people that should have attended that weren't able to attend. It was a 60-minute program. Some people might want to watch 2 or 3 7-minute or 3-minute segments from your outline from that particular program. Some people you might catch the attention of because they watched an ebook summary or a pillar content page or a long blog post summarizing what was learned there. Some people you may catch their attention because they watched a 37-second YouTube short or LinkedIn vertical video or something excerpted from that, or an email newsletter or something like that. There's an amazing content engine repurposing part of these events as well to grow the reach of your thought leadership. But again, this is all about educating and building trust, changing the nature of how you approach your lead generation, lead nurturing, sales cycle acceleration, to lean into the self-driven buyer's journey. Because in the self-driven buyer's journey, your prospects and clients don't want to spend much time with your sales team anymore when it comes to colo and when it comes to cloud services. But if your AEs, your account executives, your sales development reps, your account managers, your channel partner managers, your product managers, if they all of a sudden can show up and take on the role of consultants and teacher and subject matter expert and trusted advisor. That is a game changer where you're educating and building trust at scale. That's how you earn your way back in today's self-directed buyer's journey, even with highly technical, largely cynical, very skeptical, anti-sales and marketing IT professionals were the ideal buyers for data center colocation and cloud services. So when it comes to generating qualified leads, that's the unlock with all of this. Lead with educational resources that help your most important kind of buyers level up on what they need to know to be more successful in their jobs at the intersection of data center colocation and cloud services. And the better job you can do with showing up early and often for the right people in the right places at the right time, and most of all in the right context, so you're seen as the be-all end-all expert when it comes to anything and everything for colocation and cloud services for your specific niches, the easier and more impactful your entire lead generation program becomes. So that's how I would approach how data center colocation and cloud services businesses can generate more qualified leads. Next question up, what do we got? By the way, if you're getting good value so far from today's data center go-to-market sales and marketing Q&A show, help us spread the word by hitting the like button. Would greatly appreciate it. So our next question up is, how does a major cloud computing, storage, and analytics provider improve its sales and marketing? How does a major cloud computing, storage, and analytics provider improve its sales and marketing? Well, we really need to know for all of those three separate lines of business, where is your sweet spot? Where do you do best? Do you do best with small and medium-sized businesses? Do you do best with certain kind of vertical markets? Do you do well in the mid-market? Do you do well with enterprise? Do you do well with enterprise within certain highly regulated industries like financial services, healthcare? But because cloud plus storage plus analytics really gets at the heart in many regions of parts of the data center ecosystem where there tends to be some regulation, your company either has the accreditations and certifications and the credentialing to be able to sell into those verticals, or you don't. If you do, then I would highly recommend improving your sales and marketing by verticalizing your go-to-market sales and marketing playbooks. Meaning that if you want the easiest way to separate yourself from your competition when it comes to cloud storage and analytics, think about a separate go-to-market, a separate sales and marketing playbook, and probably even some separate team members dedicated to each one of your most important high revenue, high unit economic verticals that you sell into. If you're just selling to small and medium-sized business and you're not cutting and you're not segmenting further down by certain verticals or specializations, then yeah, you probably have a playbook that's for more transactional, lower value, lower unit economic kind of clients. And that needs to be more hyper efficient, a lot more self-service, a lot more one-to-many, a lot of self-service onboarding, a lot of self-service resources to make sure that your client acquisition and your support costs don't overwhelm the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue from those kinds of clients. If you're selling to mid-market, if you're selling to enterprise where these are huge deals, then you have a lot more options in terms of your go-to-market, the kind of marketing investments that you make, the kind of sales-related investments, the kind of retention, account management kind of investments that you make with all of that. So the first place is, let's figure out where you want more of these clients. Maybe the clues are in your case studies, maybe it's in your logo, maybe it's in your CRM, but let's get clear on that ideal client profile. Geographically, where are these clients located? How big or how small are they? How big do they need to be to afford your minimums? How large can they be before they are so large that they don't fit in with your product capabilities? If you're describing yourself as a major cloud computing, storage, and analytics provider, maybe there is no upper limit. Maybe you're just as effective at selling to a pre-revenue startup as you are selling to a Fortune 50 company on an 8-figure or 9-figure cloud services deal. I can tell you without a doubt on these massive hyperscale deals, though, the decision makers change. Historically, with hyperscale going back 5 or 10 years ago, the ultimate decision maker was the CTO. When these deals get so large, the CTO is at the table, but at a certain point, it gets so large that the CEO and the board are really a huge part of that decision committee. So it changes the nature and the investment level that you need to make to play in that kind of league from a sales, marketing, account management kind of perspective. So the first place to narrow it down is get really clear on that ideal client profile. From there, you could certainly build out target account lists. You can segment by buyer personas, but I think what will give you the most impact is to take your highest value verticals and build out separate sales and marketing for each of them. You may have microsites or their own little mini websites. You'll have your own lead, sets of buyer personas, your own lead generators, your own educational resources, your own videos, your own podcasts, their own separate lead generation program, their own separate webinar series, their own separate offline webinars, like in-person educational events, their own separate nurturing, their own separate sales team that are experts, their own separate marketers that are experts on that particular vertical. Because if you really want to resonate and walk the walk and talk the talk, you got to know what it's like to be that particular stakeholder in that kind of business. And same basic goal with your account managers, is they need to be, if you think your account executives and sales development reps need to be well trained on that particular vertical, the expectations for your account managers are even next level. They're more like consultants solving post-purchase retention expansion kind of problems that exist because there's a mismatch between your current product capabilities and what the client is currently looking for. So all of that gets much, much more impactful when you start to segment out by certain verticals, certain kinds of industries that you're selling these cloud storage and analytics products and services to over time. So that's the overall approach. Segment for who they are, where they are in the journey, and then make sure that you're showing up in a way that really, really resonates with them, that's unique to the person, that's unique to the business model that they operate within, and the particular geographic region, and roughly the company size. And bear in mind too, on these huge enterprise deals, there's more than likely significantly more than two buyer personas. In smaller companies, there may just be two different kinds of stakeholders. And larger companies, there could be 5, 6 or more different buyer personas that you want to segment and address, because in smaller companies, people wear lots of different hats. In larger companies, things that could be one person's job could be 3 or 4 different teams. So need to really understand what's going on at the org chart level in these companies, and make sure that your sales and marketing investments, especially your educational resources for the self-guided buyer's journey, really well align with that. So that's how a major cloud computing, storage, and analytics provider can improve its sales and marketing. So with that, we're going to take a quick break for a message from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to look at 3 additional issues, 3 additional big challenges on this week's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show. Again, if you're getting great value, make sure that you smash the like button, show us some love, and help spread the word.
Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that's www.dcsmi.com. Now, back to Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A.
Hey, it's Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI, the Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute. We are all about elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market professionals in the growth of the data center industry. And you are watching the Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show. So what do we have up next? How do we align with client hyperscale budgets? How do we align our entire playbook, our entire go-to-market sales and marketing playbook with our clients' hyperscale budgets? That is a fantastic question. And in some cases, you will be fortunate enough that some of these publicly traded companies tend to be a little more transparent than others about what their hyperscale budgets are. In other cases, people spend a small fortune with analyst firms to get some insight into what these client hyperscale budgets are. But regardless of whether you have an 8 or 9 figure budget for these kinds of things, or you're just a pre-revenue startup or working as a solopreneur, or a consultant, there is a way for you to get the inside scoop on at least some rough guidance on your clients' hyperscale budgets. And what that revolves around is your prospects and clients trusting you, and trusting you as a teacher, a consultant, a subject matter expert, a thought leader, a trusted advisor. Because when there is that level of trust, it's a lot more likely that after they've attended your webinar, after they've heard you speak at a conference, after they've read your amazingly helpful special report or planning guide or watched your podcast, that when you're having a conversation with you, they trust you enough to open up about what's really going on at this company that they're really not supposed to be widely talking about on a public basis. That is a really, really big deal. And I've talked to leaders of co-location, of data center operator kinds of companies, and they have built up brands, and their account executives, their channel partners, their channel partner managers have built up strong enough company brands and strong enough individual professional brands that this happens quite often, but it does not happen overnight. For sure, there have been some amazing people that I've interviewed on the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast who describe this very kind of relationship building where their clients trust them so much that I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, maybe some people would describe them as their clients or their friends, but at the end of the day, it's still business. But the reality is, in order for you to get the inside scoop, there's got to be a strong level of professional respect and a strong level of professional trust. And a lot of that starts by having your team members have a level of professional development, a level of education where they can truly have meaningful kinds of conversations with the stakeholders that they work with. So at one extreme, with companies that are stuck in the vendor box, that are focused on just closing a transaction, the AEs, the account executives, the sales development reps show up and basically read what's on the website or read what's on the slides to their prospects and clients. I've also interviewed some IT executives in some big data center technology companies and data center operators who, when they see this, they're like, this meeting's over. You can't add any value. What am I doing wasting time meeting with you? The reality is what a lot more of the future looks like, and already in the present for the companies that are out in front, is their sales team members are getting a lot stronger technically, strong enough to the point where it's reasonably common at data center operators to find seasoned members of their technical teams that are so technical that when they describe their home computer lab and what they play with nights and weekends, it reveals that their level of knowledge, technical knowledge, is so strong relative to the stereotypes that people might have of an account executive, that their technical skill set is so strong that if they wanted to, nights and weekends, they could hang out their shingle as a fractional CTO and work with local small businesses in their area, small, medium-sized businesses as a fractional CTO. So by day, they're an account executive for a big data center operator. Nights and weekends, they have 1 or 2, 3 little clients or nonprofits or something like that that they're helping out with their IT needs, not just as an advisor, but as a full-blown fractional CTO, outsourced virtual IT department. That's what the future of this looks like if you want to be able to be seen as the trusted advisor and the educator, to have these great, deep conversations, to find out about things that aren't publicly known, to get the inside scoop on client hyperscale budgets. So this is not going to happen overnight. It involves a very concerted effort on the part of the companies, on the part of the hiring, who you're hiring, how you're investing in your team members' professional development, how you're creating a culture where your team members want to take advantage of all the professional development opportunities to level up and keep their skills sharp, so they can have these kinds of relationships with highly technical, highly cynical, highly skeptical stakeholders in these companies who, for the most part, are pretty anti-sales and marketing. So in order for you to break through that barrier, they need to see you more like a peer. It could be a more junior peer than they are, but it needs to look like somebody that could be working either on their team or in another part, or on another team in their part of the company, to be able to add that kind of value. So if you want to be able to better align with clients' hyperscale budgets, they need to trust you to be able to share that kind of information with you. And that trust comes from showing that you can add value to their professional goals, to add value to helping them overcome their biggest professional struggles and challenges that are standing in the way of achieving what they're trying to do individually as a team and as a company. So it really, education and insights and value are really a huge part of the currency of you being able to better understand and align with your client's hyperscale budget. So that's the overall approach that I would use. There's no quick fixes on that. It's a long game like most of these things, but the companies that are winning are using that as the playbook. Next question up, what do we got? How do we, oh, by the way, if you're getting good value from today's show, make sure that you hit the like button to let your colleagues know about this resource. And if you have an idea for a future topic or question that you think we should address in an upcoming episode, please feel free to leave that in the comments wherever you're watching, and we will consider adding that to a queue for one of our upcoming episodes of Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A. So next question up is, how do we market and sell data center cable management systems? How do we market and sell data center cable management systems? So just to contextualize this, a company that specializes in cable management works within the technology segment of the data center ecosystem. This is different from facilities related companies. This is certainly different from construction and real estate companies. And this is different from data center operators. Now, data center operators, as well as end user data centers for sure, are going to be buyers of data center cable management systems. Other companies in data center technology that don't provide data center cable management could potentially be referral partners or channel partners for a company that provides data center cable management. Like, for example, who would be the first cousins of, who would be tangentially related to cable management? For sure, people that are involved in telecommunications, racks and cabinets, although cable management probably, you likely are if you're not in the business of cable management, you could for sure expand through M&A, mergers and acquisition, and get into that business. But okay, so who would channel partner with a cable management company? Telecommunications, hardware, racks and cabinets, storage, switches, consulting firms, software companies, monitoring companies, commissioning companies for sure in the early stages when data center companies are being built out or retrofitted. So yeah, there's managed service providers, of course. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really interesting client possibilities and channel partner possibilities for your buyer personas when it comes to marketing and selling data center cable management solutions, but they're not all created equal. Some of them are better for you than others. And over time, you will figure this out, whether you do better selling with an indirect channel partner playbook, whether you do better selling direct to infrastructure managers and IT executives and data center managers at operators and end user data centers. Again, you will figure out what works best for your capabilities, for your level of capital, for your level of resources, for where you do business. And when that happens, you'll likely have case studies and logos that reflect who your ideal clients are. From there, you should be able to back into documenting your ideal client profile. In other words, where are your best clients located geographically when it comes to cable management? For sure, there's some site survey stuff that goes on that requires visits. There's initial installation and customization and probably some ongoing maintenance that requires physical visits. So physical proximity can certainly be an issue. So if it's not your full-time team members that have geographic proximity, you're probably looking at working with some authorized reps or channel partners that have geographic proximity to where you want to do business in that particular area. So there's the geographic part of the ideal client profile. There's the company size. How big do they need to be to afford your minimums? At what size do they get so large that your current capabilities just aren't a fit for them? So what's the range in terms of number of employees that you put in your ideal client profile? And then are there certain niches or verticals or industries where you tend to do better than others? When it comes to cable management, unlike other parts of the data center ecosystem, there certainly will be some things that come up with accreditations and credentialing. IEEE certainly has things to say about. Bixby has some things to say about that, but it's not quite the same kind of issues as being in the business of co-location or being in the business of managing the technology, the fuller part of the technology stack for these kinds of companies. So you may have a broader range of industries or business models where you're a particularly good fit, but definitely get specific about geographic issues, because for sure you need that proximity, and definitely get specific about what's the minimum size they need to be, what's the maximum size where it just overwhelms your current capabilities today. That's your ideal client profile. From there, you should be able to build out a target account list of a couple dozen, couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand potential clients that fit that ICP, that fit your ideal client profile. And then within those ideal accounts, who are the first and second most important kind of economic stakeholders? Who's on the decision committee that has the most weight as to whether a particular company goes with your cable management solutions or cable management systems or something else? Is it if it's a small enough company, is it a CTO? Is it an IT infrastructure manager? Is it a engineer? Is it an infrastructure network engineer? Is it a telecommunications manager? There's a lot of different possibilities here. It's probably not facilities, but on the IT stack, it could be 3 or 4 different kinds of titles, and only you will know over time with your pattern recognition which have the most impact and which has less impact. But I want you to prioritize where you know that kind of stakeholder will have the biggest impact and who's going to have the second most impact. Because from that prioritization, then we need to do our homework and figure out what each of those folks cares most about. What are the biggest goals that they need to achieve individually, as a team, and as a company when it comes to anything and everything having to do with data center cable management systems? And it's not just our guess on what those goals are, but what they tell you those goals actually are. And the consensus, when you ask 10, 15, 20 people in their own words what those biggest goals are and which goal is top of mind. Because that's going to drive everything going forward. And along the same lines, I want you to do the same thing with their biggest struggles. What drives them nuts? What's stressing them out to no end? Messing around with their work-life balance, interfering with vacations when it comes to data center cable management. And again, same deal. Talk to 10, 15, 20 people, get their answers in their own words, figure out the consensus, figure out what the biggest challenge, the biggest stressor is. And then do that with your secondary buyer persona as well. And once you have that figured out with at least the 2 most important kinds of economic stakeholders, understanding in their own words what their biggest goals and challenges are, then you're first in a position to think about the words, the messaging, the copywriting that goes on your website. If you built your website and you did not take into account that framework, it's like your hands are tied behind your back. You're making it way, way harder on yourself than it needs to be, because your language and your messaging was probably designed to appeal to your executive team and your board of directors, and not necessarily to appeal to the most important kinds of buyers, most important kinds of clients of your cable management system. So once you have that customer insight research, it directly impacts your website copywriting, your product marketing, your sales enablement materials, your email marketing, your social posts, your ads, your event strategy. And what I'd encourage you to do is, if you're really serious about marketing and selling most effectively, is to get yourself out of the vendor box as quickly as possible. And the fastest way out of the vendor box is to really recognize how much the buyer's journey has changed over the last 5 or 10 years when it comes to nearly all segments of data center, digital infrastructure, and critical facilities. What does this mean? Well, 10 years ago, your prospects and clients would be open to taking a meeting with your sales team when they are about halfway through their research and decision-making process. That's long gone. That's long in the rearview mirror, because over the past 10 years, there's been a massive acceleration in digital transformation because of all the lockdowns in the early part of the 2020s. We've had millions of baby boomers retiring and a lot more millennials and Gen Z in decision-making roles. You have millions, in some cases, tens of millions of people working from home. And because of that, we now live in a world where the self-driven, the self-service buyer's journey is now the predominant buyer's journey. And because of that, your prospects and clients are in the driver's seat. You're no longer in the driver's seat. In most cases, they don't even want to let you in the metaphorical car. They don't even want to give you a seat at the table anymore until they're nearly ready to buy. The latest research shows that 83% of a typical journey is over before vendor contact or sales contact. So what does that mean? That means even in the best case scenario, you're only in there for the final 17% of how they research, compare options, and evaluating pricing. You're getting shut out for the first 3 quarters, the first 75, 80%, 83% of the ballgame. How do we earn our way back in there? We earn our way back in there by repositioning our account managers, our account executives, our sales development reps, our marketers, our product managers, our channel managers, to shed these traditional labels and instead be seen more like teachers, consultants, subject matter experts, trusted advisors, maybe even thought leaders when it comes to anything and everything having to do with data center cable management solutions. How do we know what to talk about? They told us. We did the buyer persona research. We heard in their own words what their biggest goals are and what their biggest challenges are. Were we listening? Are we ready to change our company's culture so that we show up in the way that we're actually invited in now, as opposed to making all these ridiculous overtures to beg our way in to come in and do a pitch where they just don't want us? They don't need anyone to read the website to them anymore. They don't need anyone to read the slides in. We have to earn our way in. And the way we earn our way in is by providing strong value so that the most important people on that decision committee want to spend as many of those 28 touch points as possible throughout the full buyer's journey. And when we do this well enough, along the same lines, they start to invite their peers, their colleagues, their boss across their team and other teams within their company to join them as well, to attend these breakfast seminars and these lunch and learns and these educational webinar series where they're just learning a ton about how they can level up on anything and everything that helps them do their job better in their data center. It's not easy. We have to be able to add value. It's a lot of culture change for a lot of companies that are stuck with a legacy playbook, but it is really the only path forward for nearly all of your buyers who now crave being in the driver's seat, who now are just going to shut you out completely of most of this journey if you don't show up in a way where you can actually add value to how they look at this particular category. And the really cool part is when you do this well, not only are you able to educate and build trust with multiple members of the decision committee, because it's much lower risk on their part to just invite someone to come along to an event or a resource or something like that, as opposed to formally endorsing your company. When you do that well, you're nearly guaranteed to stay on the short list throughout the full journey. When you do this exceptionally well, they're spending so much time over and over again with members of your client-facing team that other competitors start to drop off the short list, which means that there is a possibility that if you do this so well, they get to the buyer's journey and there's only one company left on the short list, yours. And you get to that first initial sales meeting and they're literally quoting your subject matter experts as the be-all, end-all insights and advice on anything and everything having to do with cable management, because they've used your tools, training, and your methodology to guide how they looked at this entire initiative within their company. You want to talk about major impact and changing the very nature of what it means to sell going forward? Well, this is the wake-up call for a lot of people that are watching this, because if you don't jump on this category, make no mistake, you're not going to be the first person to say, oh, it might be a good idea if we had a blog or had a podcast or had some YouTube videos or invested aggressively in webinars. No, throughout data center operators and data center technology companies and a couple of other parts throughout the data center digital infrastructure and critical facilities, companies have been at this well over 10 years. So if you're just getting started, recognize there's a lot of catch-up work to do. You're coming late to the party. So really understanding who they are and what they care about and going all in is incredibly important. But understand, this isn't time for just putting your pinky toe in the pool and saying, gee, I don't know, maybe this LinkedIn thing might work out and it's not, maybe it's just a fad. I don't know. Maybe YouTube's going to disappear next week and we put all this investment into creating these great educational resources and we'll never be able to get return on investment. It's like, if you believe these kinds of things, please record yourself on your phone and play them back. Because somehow the idea that the world's leading professional B2B networking platform with 1 billion users, that you're ignoring it and sleeping on it is like enormous missed opportunity. Or that the world's second most popular search engine owned by Alphabet is something that you shouldn't be going all in on, because now people not only are watching videos on their desktops and their notebooks and on their tablets and on their phones, are also watching on the smart TVs in their home. And it's the last bastion in for you to own significant footprint on a search engine results page that isn't being gobbled up by the large language modules. The fact that you're not going all in should scare the crap out of you into taking action. So these are big, big culture changes that in most cases in small to medium-sized companies need to start with your CEO saying, you know what, we have really, really smart people. And the fact that I'm hearing from our sales leaders and our account managers, the prospects and clients are talking down to them, condescending, rude, ghosting, all this stuff, we're better than that. We have the smartest people on the planet when it comes to data center cable management systems. And it's time for us to let the world, all of our most important buyer personas, all of our most important channel partners, to understand the value that we bring to the table. And going forward, this is going to be a huge, huge part of our culture for how we grow this business with the right people in the right places at the right time, and most of all, in the right context. So our client-facing team members are seen as the smartest people on the planet when it comes to anything and everything having to do with data center cable management systems. That's how I would approach marketing and selling data center cable management solutions in today's global hyper-competitive marketplace. And that brings us to our final question that we're going to be addressing in this week's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show. By the way, if you're getting good value, make sure that you hit the like button and let others know about this great resource. So the final question for this week is, how do modular data center providers inform clients of the advantages of modular solutions? How do modular data center providers inform their clients, inform their prospects of the advantages of modular solutions? Wow, if there was ever a topic that was conducive to content and sales enablement and thought leadership and better positioning your company, this is that. So let's break this down into more digestible action items that you can take when it comes to your modular data center solutions and how you can inform your prospects and clients of their advantages. So let's get specific about who our ideal clients are for these modular data centers. We don't want to boil the ocean. We need to pick our battles, because unless you have the resources of a Fortune 500 publicly traded company, and even so, you'll likely still segment and prioritize where you want to create this awareness and education and trust building. So let's get specific on where you win most often, where you retain and where you expand most often when it comes to your modular data center solutions. When we look at your case studies, when we look at your logos, what do they have in common? For sure, when it comes to modular data center solutions, geography is certainly a factor. If you can't deliver and install and maintain and support that modular data center, you're probably not doing business in that area. If you don't have employees, or you don't have representation, if you don't have channel partners or integrators that you work with in that geographic area. So the first part of your ideal client profile, geography, matters a ton. Let's get that out of the way. Second, what company sizes are a good fit for you? Can you realistically just sell one modular data center, one module to one company and be totally happy and satisfied with that? Or reality, are you looking to build relationships with companies where they're going to purchase several or several dozen modular data centers from your company, either for a single location or for multiple locations spread across a geographic area? And again, only you can answer that, where your unit economics work out, where your sweet spot is, where your focus is. But in your ideal client profile, you should be able to document not only the minimum installation, but what company sizes are primed to be great clients of your modular data center solution. So what's the smallest company that can afford your minimums in terms of their employee size or revenue or headcount? And what's the company that's so large that you may not be able to handle the massive needs that they have across multiple geographies, potentially across multiple continents all over the globe? So have a realistic range for headcount, employee size on your ideal client profile. And then finally, think about, for your modular data center solutions, are you able to sell to all different industries, or are there certain compliance, accreditation, certification things that tend to come up with certain highly regulated industries where you're either very well suited or going to be instantly knocked out because you don't have those credentials. So with that in mind, take into account in highly regulated industries, are you a good fit, or will you be an instant knockout on those? That should also be in your ideal client profile. And then from there, we need to get some awareness about who the right people are that we need to educate and build trust with. And in some cases, you could be selling to developers who want to put a module on supplementing or as an interim step or a permanent step in a particular location. You may be selling to people that are investors in Edge that want to use a module as a low latency location. You may be selling to co-location operators or wholesale data center providers who see this as part of the solution. Commissioning companies could potentially have an impact. Integrators could potentially have an impact. So in other words, there's 5, 6, 7 different kinds of stakeholders who could be interested in your modular data center solution. But unless you have massive resources, you really, really need to pick and prioritize the top 1 and 2, maybe the top 3 at the absolute most. Your primary buyer persona, your secondary buyer persona, and maybe a tertiary buyer persona, where you're going to concentrate your efforts on lead generation, lead nurturing, education, and trust building going forward. It's too much of a lift if this is brand new to you to be able to be going in 3, 4, 5 different directions at once. If you have dozens of people on your go-to-market, your marketing and sales enablement kind of teams, your sales operations teams, then yeah, perhaps you can go in 3, 4, 5, 6 different directions at once. But if you're a smaller company, pick your battles. You got to pick your favorite child and your second favorite child here. Of course, it's just a parenting analogy. I'm not telling you to go pick your favorite actual child or your favorite offspring, but who's your most important buyer persona and who is your second most important buyer persona that matters most, that has the biggest economic impact on your success with opening a new deal, progressing that deal, closing that deal, and retaining and landing and expanding a satisfied client that loves your modular data center solutions. And when you figure that out and you've prioritized, then we need to do our homework about what that particular person cares most about. What are their biggest goals when it comes to selecting on modular data center providers? What do they need to get done individually? What is their company working on? What is their team working on? We need to get consensus on their biggest goals in their own words. And along the same lines, we need to understand what's frustrating them the most, what's stressing them out to no end, what's messing with their work-life balance, what's messing up their vacations. What are their biggest challenges when it comes to the modular data center, or just data centers in general, but especially the modular category? And when we get the consensus in their own words, it becomes much, much easier to approach website copywriting, product marketing, sales enablement, email marketing, social media, your entire lead generation and lead nurturing program, your entire educational event strategy. If you have a lot of these elements in place already and you're not crystal clear on your ideal client profile and your buyer persona's biggest goals and challenges in their own words, there's a chance that you're anywhere from selling yourself short to really working with your hands tied behind your back. The more client-centric you are, the easier it is to compete in really, really crowded spaces where you can punch way above your weight class. Have you ever heard Mark Benioff talk about like what his overall marketing sales go-to-market strategy was 20, 25 years ago in their early days of Salesforce? It was to create marketing impact that punched so far above its weight class that it always made Salesforce look 10 times, 20 times, 100 times larger than it actually was. So for sure, I'm not telling you to go out and use smoke and mirrors, but I am telling you that if you are able to proactively be the preferred source that these particular buyers go to when it comes to getting like a mini MBA, a mini master's degree in learning anything and everything that's super important to their job role at the intersection of modular data center providers, they're going to want to spend time with members of your client-facing team. It completely changes the dynamics of having to have sales development reps and account executives who spend most of their effort chasing prospects and clients, begging for meetings so you can come in and pitch. No. When you truly understand what their biggest goals and struggles are, and you show up in a way that your client-facing team members are seen more as consultants, teachers, subject matter experts, trusted advisors, maybe even thought leaders, when it comes to anything and everything having to do with modular data centers, it is a game changer for the positioning. It's a game changer for the level of respect. And when you think about the typical like 28 touch points between complete stranger and purchase decision, as someone jumps from awareness to consideration and consideration to decision in the buyer's journey. The more amazing these educational events are, the more the ideal buyer personas want to spend time with you. And the more likely it is that when you say, hey, Sue, I saw that you signed up for our lunch and learn on how to provision, what to be thinking about with site selection when it comes to the ideal placement of modular data centers next week. But when it comes to this particular topic, it takes a village. There's typically people on the team from commissioning, from site selection, from architecture, from ESG, from finance. So with that in mind, who else from your team would also benefit from attending? You'd be shocked at something as simple as that message is what gets a second or third or fourth person from the same company to come to your educational events. And when you do that, when you're starting to stack your registration list, your attendee list with multiple members from that decision committee, game changer, truly a game changer. Because when they get good value the first time and you invite them to the follow-up next month, next quarter, not only do they come back, but they want to bring more people. And before long, you're not the vendor of modular data centers. You're the vendor who happens to have these world-class educational experts, these educational resources that's teaching them anything and everything that they need to know to be successful with their modular project. That's what keeps you on the short list. That's what knocks your competitors off the short list. And that's what nearly guarantees that when you get to the decision stage of the journey and they're finally ready for a sales conversation, that you have dramatically shaped the criteria that they've used to evaluate all of the competitive options that are in front of them. And in many cases, they're even using your own words, your own methodologies for driving this internal initiative. And wow, does that put you in a powerful position moving forward, not only to be able to close the deals on your own terms without compromise, but it sets the stage for fantastic onboarding, for great account management, for getting them to initial value, intended value, extended value, for cross-selling, for upselling, for expansion, for them becoming great ambassadors of your brand going forward. It sets the stage for exactly what you're looking to do to grow your modular data center business. But it starts by recognizing that the buyer is now in the driver's seat. They now prefer the strong preferences around this digital buyer's journey. No one needs you to read the slides of the website to them anymore, but they're hungry for learning. And when you can show up as the teacher and the consultant and the trusted advisor, they will keep coming back to learn from you and your client-facing team members, and they'll bring their colleagues with them as well. And that has a massive, massive impact on having a strong, productive, positive vibe, not only throughout your sales cycle, but post-purchase as well. So that's how modular data center providers can inform clients of the advantages of modular solutions, and in particular, of how they approach anything and everything having to do with modular design, development, installation, the entire life cycle of a modular data center. So that's the final question that we're going to be addressing in this week's Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show. If you have an idea for a topic that you'd like to see us address in an upcoming show, please leave that in the comments wherever you're watching, and we'll consider adding that to the queue. If you've gotten good value from this episode, make sure that you hit the like button. And if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, I'm Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI. Send me a connect request, mention that you watch the show, and I'd love to be connected with you on LinkedIn. And also, if you want to make sure that you get notified about upcoming educational events and resources like this, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter that comes to your email inbox on Sundays. You can subscribe on our website at www.dcsmi.com. Until next time, we look forward to seeing you back again for the Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A show. Next time, bring other members of your team with you as well. Teams that learn together, grow together. Have a great week. Till you see you again. Take care now.
Data Center Go-to-Market Sales and Marketing Q&A is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales marketing and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that's www.dcsmi.com.